Yes, sir, ladies and gents. Once again, we are back. Another Rooted in Sports Thursday. Got another really good episode for you. We're gonna get into a little bit of the NBA Finals recap. Gonna go over Game 3 in which the Denver Nuggets did win 109-94, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're gonna talk about that a little bit. Um, Chris Paul, who we're all familiar with, 18-year veteran. It seems as if the Phoenix Suns are going to go ahead and move off of him. So we're going to talk about a few possible
Which is smart.
destinations. Yeah, we're going to talk about a few possible destinations for him. We're going to switch over to football. Yet another player is being released, running and what these running backs, boy. Whew. But Dalvin Cook, Minnesota Vikings, seem like they're going to be moving on from Dalvin Cook. So we'll discuss some possible destinations for him. And then last but not least, not sure if you guys have been keeping up with this EA Sports 2024 NCAA football game that's supposed to be coming out. But it's some really interesting developments there as far as the players. And as you know, these collegiate players are getting NIL money now. And so there's really a huge possibility of players kind of boycotting the game because supposedly they're not necessarily going to get their fair share of compensation from this new game possibly coming out. So we're gonna hit that real quick, short and sweet show for you guys today, maybe a good hour, and we're gonna get on out the way. So without any further ado, King Tiberius, how you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. I'm just ready to get in and catch up on some things and talk some sports. And yeah, it's been a very fun, eventful sports week, and things are starting to heat up, especially on the football side.
Word.
Yeah.
Well, without any further ado, we're gonna get into this handy dandy intro and go for what we know. Yes, sir. Really love our intro. Can't say that enough,
Yeah.
But right back like we left some. And like I said, we're gonna go ahead and start with some maybe NBA Finals recap in particular with Game 3. And like I said, Denver Nuggets did come out on top 109-94. They really kind of bust the game open in the third quarter, and they just kind of pretty much cruise through. Miami didn't necessarily make a really serious threat to them in the second half. It went on a cruise through. Nikola Jokic with a historical Game 3, 32 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists, the first 30-20 triple-double in NBA Finals history. Jamal Murray, following suit with 34, 10, and 10. They become the first pair of teammates to have 30-point triple-doubles in NBA history. That's regular season or playoffs. I mean, so many things I can get into here, bro. I mean, I really don't even know where to start.
and let me go ahead and it's a name that I definitely wanted to mention to you, because especially when I watched the game and then I recap, I remember thinking back, kind of going into this year's draft, and Denver drafted this kid. Denver drafted this kid, this wing, from Kansas. All right, you want to say his name for me?
Christian. Okay, so everybody pronounces it different. I say Christian Braun. A lot of people say
the
Christian
RSI.
Brown. Yeah, Brown. A lot of people say Christian Brown or whatever. But yeah, man, he's came in and gave them a hell of a lot of energy these lads in the finals.
And I remember you saying when they picked him up that he had the potential to be very impactful for them year one, because they needed some more bodies. I mean, really, you could say guard wise, but they needed more bodies on the wing. And here he is. I mean, he was a big game guy at Kansas too.
He was. So I remember we did the draft show, and I remember coming up to their pick. I remember calling this pick out, and I was saying, look out for Christian Braun here. I think he was like 21st or 22nd or something in the first round. Coming from the defending national champion Kansas Jayhawks at the time. They had just beat North Carolina in the NCAA national championship game. So coming out of college, he was really more so known for his shooting.
Right.
And he can shoot the ball. But what we've come to find out is that he's a little sneaky athletic. And he's a really fiery competitor. He's very coming off the bench. Yeah. And he wasn't really seeing a ton of time early in the playoffs, but he kept working, he kept grinding. And now on the biggest stage and the biggest moments, you see Mike Malone trusting him, and it's paying dividends. I mean, I think he had 15 points.
Yeah.
Let me go back here.
He had 15 points.
Yeah, he had 15 points.
4 rebounds, 1 assist.
7 to 8 from the field, 15 points in about 20 minutes. But it was the energy that he brought, He came in, obviously, he had the 15 points, 7 of 8 from the field. But even more impressive to me was the energy and the sense of urgency that he brought on the defensive end. I mean, he was pesky. He was getting his hand. He was tipping balls and knocking balls away, getting steals. He had the one steal for the breakaway dunk that seemed like the camel that or the one that broke the camel's back, and that was in the third quarter. I mean, he's this final series, every time he comes in, good things seem to happen for this team. And it's right on time because,
Bruce Brown
singing this guy's praises.
KCP.
But not even KCP. Michael Porter Jr. has been in a slump in these finals. Like he's like 3 for 19 or 3 for 20 or something like that in his finals. And he didn't play a single minute in the fourth quarter yesterday.
That's right. Mike Malone went away from him.
Yeah. Christian Braun, Bruce Brown, KCP kind of split those little wing. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff Green split those little wing minutes there. He didn't play a single minute in the fourth quarter because he's struggling shooting the ball right now.
Right.
So when you got a rookie who has paid his dues, and now you can bring a guy like that in, and he can pay dividends like that. He comes in, he's instant energy. I guess now you can say instant offense. I mean, it's just a plus for the team as a whole,
And I think it speaks to the depth of their bench. Like I was, you were talking about Michael Porter Jr. and I was mentioning KCP and Bruce Brown. They didn't have big games, definitely scoring wise. I mean, I don't think what KCP had 6 points, Bruce Brown had 5 points.
Yeah,
and you could argue that Christian Braun really stepped up and gave them those extra points they needed to really close out this game 3.
Oh yeah. Because and they always say this, role players play better at home.
Yes.
It's so looking at this series and in particular this Denver Nuggets team, you know what you're gonna get from Jokic. And I'm gonna get on him and Murray in a second. You know what you're gonna get from Jokic. You know what you're gonna get from Jamal Murray now. Right. But especially in this series against a team that's just from a talent standpoint just really isn't necessarily on their level. If they can get something from any other guy, whether it's Bruce Brown or Michael Porter Jr. or Christian Braun or KCP, Jeff Green, if they can get something 15 to 18 from any of those, Aaron Gordon, from any of those guys, it's game over.
That's crazy.
It's point blank period, And I wanted to mention this though, because not all, but I heard, I've been watching a lot of the analysts and listening to them, and I've heard so many analysts. Some even went as far as to say Miami is going to win this series. I'm picking Denver. However, and I'm not saying that this series is over, but
It's not.
Mike Malone said something even going back to this Lakers series, and the Denver Nuggets really have been disrespected all year.
Oh, and they've been the number 1 seed.
Yeah, they've been the number 1 seed for the vast majority in the Western Conference, and they've just been disrespected all year. Like, to hear some of these analysts talk about this Miami Heat team, I'm sorry, but I sit back and I think, like, are we watching the same series? Because and I mean this when I say this. You know, Jimmy Butler's great. Bam Adebayo. I love Bam Adebayo. He can play on my team all day, every day, twice on Sunday.
He has a motor.
He does. But I mean, they literally have to shoot phenomenal from 3, or they will not beat this team. They cannot match up with this team. They got out rebounded 58-33 yesterday. Now, mind you, Jokic had 21 rebounds. Murray had 10 rebounds. So they almost got out rebounded by 2 players.
2 people.
Like, they lack size. They really lack the talent. As much as I love Jimmy Butler, as much as I like Bam Adebayo, clearly Nikola Jokic is the best player in this series. He's the best player in the world
right now. Yeah.
And you can argue that Jamal Murray is the second best player in this series.
Yeah.
So they're just overmatched, you know? And Jimmy Butler, for all that he is, you know, we call him playoff Jimmy for a reason, but for all that he is, when we look at how high we've seen him elevate his game, he's kind of inconsistent in the sense that we know that he can reach that level, but he doesn't play at that level consistently. Whereas Jokic is going to be Jokic consistently. There's not a single game that Jokic could ever play that he won't have a stamp or make his impact on the game. Because if you
slow down his 45,
50, or he can score 24 and have 12 assists.
Right. He's gonna make an impact. Okay, so let me ask you this. All right, and this is gonna be, and I'm sure for anybody watching, you know, some people may scoff at this question. But, you know, we're seeing Jamal Murray blossom into the player that we always felt like he could have been. Right?
Yeah. I think this is the player that he was in the bubble. Pre-injury, this is the guy that we seen him, you know, as.
True. But now it just looks more consistent. It looks like he's fully owned in this form. It doesn't look like it's a flash in the pan type of deal.
Oh, he's bona fide for sure.
So then let me ask you this. If they do what they need to do and they finish off this series with the way that these two are playing, do you really start to compare them to the elite duos in NBA history? Shaq, Kobe, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James. Do they
Mike and Scotty? Sorry,
Mike and Scotty. I know you had to throw it in there, but my question is: would the way that they're performing in this year's playoffs, do they deserve to be mentioned in the pantheon of elite? I mean, granted, maybe not career wise, but I'm talking about this postseason championship run. What do you think?
I would hold off on that, and the only reason I would is because everyone you mentioned, you know, LeBron and Wade, Shaq and Kobe, Mike and Scotty. We can go back, Kareem and Magic. Everyone that we mentioned, well, not even. I'm not even going to say Stockton and Malone, but those previous guys that we mentioned, all of those guys have multiple rings together.
Okay,
and this would be Murray and Jokic's, you know, first ring if they were to win. Now, I mean, they're just as lethal of a combination as, you know, in any of those guys, you know, especially like Nikola Jokic is making his stamp as one of the best big men to ever play this game. And it's just so crazy because he is so unathletic. It's just not even funny. Like, if you're not a real true like basketball purist, you probably hate watching him play But I mean,
as most people do.
He rumbling, bumbling up the floor. His game really kind of consists of a lot of finesse because you don't see him really, dunking the ball a lot or out jumping guys. He's not a quick leaper or nothing like that. But he's extremely technically sound. He's very fundamentally sound. And for a big man, he has one of the softest touches in the league around the rim. Like it seems like around the rim, he always gets the bounce. He can shoot the ball from mid-range, however you in the paint, mid-range, out to the three. The man, as I've said years ago, he's the best passing big man we've ever seen. And I mean, the way he impacts the total game, it's just crazy. And then we could say what we want about him defensively, but if nothing else, the man gonna get in there and rebound. We can say whatever we want about him.
He's gonna do something. He's gonna contribute somehow, some way.
Exactly, man. And I mean, like I said, he's the best player in the world. And at this point, in his career, all things in told, if you telling me I could take one player to start my franchise with, I'm not sure I wouldn't pick him. And you can call me prisoner of the moment or whatever, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who was just back-to-back MVP and probably had a better season this year than he had those 2 seasons.
Is he the most versatile big ever?
Offensively, probably so. Because I mean, what can't he do, or what weakness does he have offensively? Like I said, he can really score on all 3 levels. Okay, he's good in the paint. He can shoot the mid range. He can shoot the three. He's great on the block. He has really good footwork. You know what I'm saying? He can face you up and take you off the dribble. And he can pass his ass off. Like what offensively? What more can you ask for out of big man? He initiates offense. Like it's not like a lot of these bigs in the past. The Divox, the Sabonises, the Tim Duncans, the Chris Webbers, all those guys, these bigs that could pass their ass off. Gasol. A lot of times we've seen them either passing out of the post, or playing, elbow extended or whatever, and guys are just kind of running rubs and whatnot off of him. And you see Jokic do that a lot, especially him and Jamal Murray with the dribble handoffs. But they literally inbound the ball to Jokic, and he's bringing it up running offense. Or he'll get a rebound, and he's bringing it up running offense, getting guys in position. Like guys are operating off of him. He's getting the team into sets. Like we've never seen a 7-footer do that. Not a true center. We've never seen a true center be able to do that.
He's the first point. He's the first point center in NBA history.
Point center in NBA. Like seriously. So I mean, he may offensively, he may very well be the most versatile big we've ever seen. And people can call me a prisoner of the moment, but I mean, I've been on this guy for some years now.
You have.
You know what I'm saying? Like I've foreseen this for a while.
You've been on him since before, or when Denver was just a fringe playoff team. That's how long you've been on him.
When they had him and Nurkic, who's with Portland.
Right.
When they let Nurkic go, I knew then, like, hey, this dude's for real.
Yeah.
Like he's for real.
So
yeah, man. And then as far as Miami, man, I mean, like I said, that's why I was kind of killing me with these analysts, because I was just really wondering, like, what game are they watching? Like Miami has to shoot and not saying that they can't, because they can get hot. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, like those guys can get hot from 3. Maybe who knows? Well, they already ruled Tyler Hero out for Game 4, so I don't think he's going to play in this series, honestly. But okay, either way, I mean, those guys can get hot, and they can. I'm not saying that this series is over, but what I am saying is that legitimately their only chance of winning this series is being able to shoot the 3 ball at a high clip. Yesterday they made more threes than Denver, but they were 11 for 35. They only shot 31% from 3. When you obviously Denver killed them from 2, You know what I'm saying? They only shot 30. Miami only shot 37% for the game. Meanwhile, Denver shot over 51%. So you couple that with the fact that you got out rebounded by 25. I mean, if you're already a smaller team, Denver's already been one of the better rebounding teams in the playoffs. You're already a smaller team. So they call, as they say, the 3-point shot is the great equalizer. And that's how they're going to keep this an even playing field. They've got to knock down threes at a great clip. Otherwise, they won't win this series.
But then it's so dangerous because Denver can shoot the 3 ball very well. I mean, granted, you got some guys that are off, but I mean, we've seen them go on runs where they really couldn't miss.
They can, man. And last thing before we move on, and I have to mention this, we talk about Denver offensively, but quiet as it's kept, if you're really watching this team, they're playing some pretty sound defense as well. And not just in this series, but throughout the playoffs. Like, I think that's what's really been a difference maker for them is that they're playing some pretty sound defense as a team. They're really in key moments, in key times. They're a third quarter team, and a lot of times you see them coming out the halftime after making adjustments, and they go on their runs, and it starts with them stringing together stops.
And I guess the big thing for me is just looking at Miami, who I've enjoyed watching the last 3 or 4 years, but I just feel like they're the same team, and maybe they're a little bit in denial about what they need to make it to the next level and truly be a championship team. I think if they had one truly dominant leading scorer, that this is a different series. But you're asking Jimmy Butler to consistently punch above his weight class, or just have these amazing out of world performances. And then you're asking more from Bam Adebayo, who I like on both ends. But hell, especially in a series like this, you need him more on the defensive side than you need him on the offensive side. And I don't know. I hope this series, especially if they lose, I mean, I kind of feel like Denver can finish this thing off if they really handle their business. But I think Miami really needs to take a step back, reflecting like, hey, we need somebody. Like, we need to bring somebody in here. Look, we need to bring Kawhi in here. We need to do what Toronto did and bring Kawhi in here and just let him kill, and we'll just handle the rest.
Or I'll throw a name out there, and they asked him hypothetically, and I think he actually mentioned Miami in a hypothetical situation. But if they could somehow, coerce, Damian Lillard into joining, I mean. And then you able to keep Jimmy and keep Bam. Now you got some, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh no, yeah, you do. I think that would work. Yeah.
But over these past few years, I mean, just calling a spade, they're an overachieving team, But the coaching, B, Jimmy Butler being Jimmy Butler, and C, just the culture of the Miami Heat. They overachieve. They always perform above their roster or their makeup. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just who they are. They're an overachieving team. And even during this season, when they were very inconsistent, surprisingly, when they were about 3 minutes away from not even getting out of the play-in, I'm not surprised to see them where they're at because that's who they are. It's a culture thing for them. You know what I'm saying? This is who they are. But with that being said, I mean, they're overachievers, but there's not really too many teams that they played. You can go back to Boston. You can go to Milwaukee, this Denver series. We can go back to last year against Boston. We can go back to the bubble against Boston and Milwaukee and the Lakers. None of those teams. You can look at none of those teams and say that Miami had a better roster. You can look at none of those teams and say Miami had a better makeup. They're overachievers.
And here's the funny part. We could argue that whoever would have made the finals out of the Western Conference, it's still a mismatch.
If the Lakers would have got there, I think the Lakers it'll be the same thing.
It'd been the same thing. They are, and I can say this,
assuming that Anthony Davis would be consistent. But
right. He
but
would be the one.
the Lakers probably would have been the favorite though.
I agree, and I think they're like the Memphis Grizzlies when the Memphis Grizzlies were competitive. We never thought they were going to win a championship with Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, and Mike Conley. But but
they
just stayed
really, really gritty, really dirty. Not dirty, that's a bad word, but really gritty, really physical basketball. And I mean, they overachieved, and it worked for them. They had a great chemistry, and it worked for them.
So same team to me.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens with game 4 tomorrow. I fully expect. I think these next 2 games, game 4, and despite whatever the decision, whatever the outcome of game 4, games 4 and 5 will be the 2 toughest games of Denver's season, because Miami's going to come out, they're playing for their playoff life. And as we've seen, they play 10 times better when their back is against the wall. So they're going to come out, they're going to play for their playoff life. And then barring whatever the outcome is tomorrow, game 5 back in Denver, whether it's 3-1 or whether it's 2-2 going back to Denver, that might be the best game of the season. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But for Miami to win this series, they got to find some consistent shooting on the outside, or Jimmy Butler is going to have one of those 2020 NBA Finals games or first round against Milwaukee 55-point type of games. That's the only way they'll win.
Hopefully he can keep that up.
We shall see.
But I wanted to switch and I wanted to ask you, we talked about Chris Paul, and we know Phoenix has, from my understanding, informed him that they're going to release him in part ways. And, obviously he's done some good things there, and he really helped. He was instrumental in, I would say, developing Devin Booker, somewhat developing DeAndre Ayton, because he kind of acts like a big baby sometimes. But he's done some really good things.
And I think they're going to get off of him too, but that's another story. But I don't think he'll be there next year either.
Right. So what are some, when you look across the league, what are some possible, I have one, but I'm sure everyone is assuming that's going to be the first one. But what are some possible destinations for Chris Paul that he can go? Because at this point, he's there. He's at the bare end of his career.
He's in year 18. He's right behind LeBron.
Right.
But so I think it's what LeBron, Haslam, LeBron, and Chris Paul as far as years in the league or something like that.
Right. So where is he gonna go? Where one, he's gonna fit in and be able to play some type of minutes, and he's gonna have a chance to actually compete for a championship. What are some possible destinations that you see for Chris Paul?
So I think immediately right away you think Lakers.
Right.
I'm sure they're looking to and more than willing to move off of D'Angelo Russell.
Not D'Lo.
Yeah, they're probably going to move off of him again, and especially seeing how I fully expect them to pay Austin Reeves whatever dollar amount comes up. Okay, and if that number reaches $100 million, I pay him $100 million. That's how valuable and how good and how much of an arc I think Austin Reeves is on. So I whatever the number is, I gotta keep Austin Reeves. He's so untouchable to me.
So before you continue, just real quick, you think you think he's going to continue to grow? Like, you think that there's another level to this thing?
I'll put it like this: I think so highly of Austin Reeves that I think he could be the third leading scorer on that team. That's how highly I think of him. Like, Austin Reeves is a ball player. And you could argue that through the totality of their playoff run, Austin Reeves was their most consistent
player. He was
throughout the totality of their playoff run.
I seen a post. I seen a post I seen a post picking at LeBron fans. They said, "Hey, somebody get Austin Reeves some help."
Right? But no, there were moments where it seemed like AD was every other game.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron, at the end of the day, I mean, Father Time is undefeated. You can say what you want. LeBron is still, looks great for his age, but he's still 38. He'll be 39 next season. He still was in year 20. It'll be year 21 next season.
Mm-hmm.
They need a young influx of energy. And I mean, Austin Reeves, like I said, you can argue throughout the totality of their playoff run to the Western Conference Finals, Austin Reeves was their most consistent player night in and night out. And he's a guy that not only is pretty adequate as an offensive weapon, but he's pretty adequate on the defensive end as well. And he's still young. So he's gonna command a big payday this offseason, and somebody's gonna pay him. I think the Lakers are gonna go out of their way to make sure he stays. Said all that to say, Chris Paul, I think he's owed about 30-some million this year. But I think in releasing him, I think Phoenix has to pay half or either the majority of that contract, something like that. So either way, I think that's an option for Chris Paul. And I think that he'll be willing to possibly come at a lesser value or at a lesser rate just to join a team who, with his acquisition, would be a championship contender in the West. I think he fit in very well there. And then they still got other ball handlers. If they keep Dennis Schroeder, they can use Austin Reeves kind of as a ball handler and a playmaker in spurts. Obviously, LeBron can be a playmaker. So I think that'll be a good spot for him where even throughout the regular season, they can kind of watch and monitor his minutes. They don't have to put a lot of wear and tear on him. And then come playoff time, he can be that leader that he naturally is. I'm gonna say another spot, and we were talking about this in a chat on Saturday, and I got a little mixed reaction to it. But I'll give another spot. I think he would really do some good in Boston, especially if they decide, and Boston has a huge decision to make. But especially if they decide to keep Jaylen Brown, because we know they're gonna give Jason Tatum the bag after next season, which he'll be eligible. After next season, Jason Tatum could become the highest NBA player in NBA history. He's looking at 6-7 years, 318, 319, something like that. Jaylen Brown's looking at 5 or 6 for about 295. So you're talking about over $600 million in between two players. But I think Chris Paul's leadership could really pay some dividends there. So that's another quiet destination that I think will be good and would still have him playing for a championship. And last but not least, call me crazy, Phoenix just released him. If they can actually talk him into reworking his contract and coming back at a lesser value, just to get back in there and because he's really good friends. He's built a really great relationship with Devin Booker. Obviously, he has a great relationship with Kevin Durant. If Phoenix could possibly talk him into, taking a lesser contract just to come back and plan for a title next year, I mean, that's a possible destination. But those are the three that I really look at right now. I mean, in a dark horse, and I mean a really dark horse, if James Harden decides to leave,
Philly,
maybe he can look at Philly. About Philly. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, at the end of the day, Chris Paul is he's getting older, and every now and again he can still summons it up. But if you're looking for him to give it to you as far as offensively, as far as scoring wise,
you're not going to get that on a consistent basis.
He's not going to do that night in and night out. But what he can do is he can come in, he can command and control the locker room. He can be a coach on the floor. He can get guys in good situations and get good shots in crunch time moments. He can make big shots himself. He can get 8, 9, 10 assists a game in his sleep. And he can be the quintessential leader that's needed on a team that's possibly right on the fringe of being a championship contender. And so those are the 3, maybe 4 destinations that I can think of off the top of my head.
And I would like Boston. When you mentioned Boston, I actually like that fit because, we've always talked about them not having that one true point guard. I think who was doing a majority of their distributing. I know, was it Peyton Pritchard?
I know they signed Malcolm Brogdon.
Malcolm Brogdon
in the offseason. And he was kind of coming off the bench and kind of being a playmaker for him. But I mean, I'm sure they would love that. I mean, nothing against Malcolm Brogdon. I love him, but he's not Chris Paul. And having that veteran leader there and putting him in a situation where if they keep Jaylen Brown, he won't even be looked upon or depended upon to actually score at a high clip. I'm talking about you can see him, 11, 12 points a game, 9, 10 assists a game,
which is good, which right up his alley.
Just being that leader and that coach on the floor, you know what I'm saying? And that will really help a Joe Mazzulla, who we've criticized for some of his coaching, inefficiencies, and they've already went out and got Sam Cassell on his staff to kind of help him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I like Boston, definitely like LA. I wouldn't mind if he's willing to rework his contract. I wouldn't mind him going back to Phoenix. But as I mentioned earlier, I think they're getting off of DeAndre Ayton either way. The issue there is they need a big, and I'm not sure exactly what they can flip DeAndre Ayton for.
But see, I'll say this, and then obviously we can move on. Phoenix is kind of, I hope they have a plan of what they want to do because they're kind of potentially putting themselves in a bad position. Let's say you move off of Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. Now you need a point guard and you need a big.
Yeah.
Right. And go ahead.
I was going to say, and I've heard, some rumblings early on, if they, as far as them moving off of Chris Paul, I've heard a possible replacement in Mike Conley, whom I like.
Right. But he's not Chris Paul.
I do like that fit. I do like it. But now you're banking on a guy who, at the end of the day, he's only he's been in the league a long time himself.
Mike Conley's been. He's
maybe about 2 years younger than Chris Paul. And now you're banking on him to stay healthy for the duration of a series and into the playoffs as well, because they really depend on him. Now I like the fit. I think it'll be a good fit. You know what I'm saying? He still keeps himself in pretty good shape. He's a good shooter, a good distributor and facilitator, and I think he'll be a solid leader. And I think he's a good chemistry guy in that locker room with Booker and with Kevin Durant. But now you're getting off one older guy who has some injury issues, and
so another older
moving
guy
on to another older guy who could possibly, have some injury issues. And then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with DeAndre Ayton? Like, realistically, who could you possibly get that'll be a suitable big to either fit your scheme or what you're trying to do, or even be comparable to DeAndre Ayton? Because as much as I hate his motor, as much as I do think it's time for them to move off.
He's a talent. He's a talented big.
I mean, he can still, he has 20 and 10 capability, and it's not very many bigs that can do that. So now it's like, what do you do?
I think my main worry, and this is just kind of going back to Chris Paul, is when you look at that Phoenix team, who is going to? We've seen them doing in spurts, but obviously this is, they're very fractured right now. Chris Paul was so important to the infrastructure of that team. And now you move off of him, and not only do you lose his impact on the court as a player, but you lose that voice. Yeah. Now you have to depend on Kevin Durant, who is a phenomenal player, but we can agree that he's not really a leader like that. Mm-hmm. And now you got to depend on Devin Booker, who is a likable guy, but we've never known Devin. We've never thought of Devin Booker as just this fiery leader. So you have a whole bunch of talent, and I'm sure they can continue to add more talent to that roster, but you're not going to have anybody who can really align the troops or get guys ready to, to play and go into these big moments. And that's just my worry for them. And then, you look at the Western Conference is getting better and better and better. And you're going to mess around and run into a Denver, run into a much improved LA Lakers team,
Mm-hmm.
and the list goes on. Run into Memphis if they figure it out. You just never know. And you may not have that chemistry, or you may not have the infrastructure. You may have the talent, but you may not have the infrastructure to overcome them and advance to the finals, that's what the plan is. So that's my worry.
Yeah, and last thing before we move on, man, and as far as his game on the court, I am as big of a Kevin Durant fan as you'll ever find.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, and I hate to say this, but there are signs there that he may not quite be the Kevin Durant that we've all come to know. Like there's signs there, like this is maybe it's his body breaking down. He's getting older. He's not no youngster himself now. Next year will be year 15, 16.
Yeah, he came in about 4 years after them.
So
4 or 5 years after.
I mean, this is 2 playoffs in a row where we haven't seen Kevin Durant really be Kevin Durant. So there's that, man. They're really gonna have to Phoenix, and they got the new owner and Matt Ishbia, who has a basketball background. He was on Michigan State's national championship team in 2000. So he has he's not just a regular owner. He has some basketball background to him. So they really got some decisions to make. They were gonna have to really field an entire team. And before we move on, I'm gonna say this. And they were talking about it during the game yesterday. If Denver happens to win this championship, don't be surprised into next season. And we can end it here. Don't be surprised into next season if you start to see more and more teams fill a roster spot with 1 or 2 traditional bigs. Because Jokic
is a problem.
He's a problem that people are going to have to deal with. And Embiid, they're problems that people are going to have to deal with. And especially in the Western Conference, you might want to have
2 or 3 big bodies you can put on them.
Big bodies that you can put on them, because you see Bam Adebayo, I love him, but Cody Zeller,
6'8", 6'9".
But I mean, it's hard for them to deal with, man. But that's that. Make sure you guys check out Game 4 tomorrow in this NBA Finals series. And I expect it to be a really good game. Like I said, Games 4 and Games 5 will be the 2 most important games of Denver's season, win or lose. So moving on, we're gonna get into a little bit of football. As we mentioned earlier, we got 4-time Pro Bowler Dalvin Cook, former running back for the Minnesota Vikings. They informed him that they're going to be letting him go today. And so we thought we would discuss maybe some possible destinations for a guy like Dalvin Cook. Kenny knows I am a fan of his. He's had his bout with injuries as well. He's had his injury issues as well. Although last season, if I'm not mistaken, he did play all 17 last year.
For the first time,
yeah. So, Kenny, I'm gonna ask you. I got a few places in mind, but I'm gonna ask you, what are some possible destinations for Dalvin Cook where you think he could really make an impact, really make a difference and possibly take a team into that next tier?
Well, first of all, I have to say this before I get into the destinations.
I feel like I know where you're going.
Alexander Madison made Dalvin Cook expendable.
I mean,
he made that franchise so comfortable that they said, "Get Dalvin Cook the hell up out of here."
Not to veer so much into this debate,
I had to throw it out there.
However, and I think that's a valid point. That is a valid point. But I also think that
And this is prime Dalvin Cook.
you're seeing the running back position be so undervalued that literally it's literally a handful of guys that are and even those guys, I mean, there were even rumblings about Derrick Henry, being moved on from. Like, I think that's just the running back position. And you're seeing a team like Kansas City be so successful without a real, true, dominant star running back. I like Isaiah Pacheco, but you're seeing them be successful without a true star running back. So I think that the position is just extremely undervalued.
It is.
Not to take anything away from Madison.
No, it is. But I think that, and I like Dalvin Cook, but I've always felt like he is a flashy guy, but there are some limitations to his game. And I think over time, maybe Minnesota was just like, okay, well, we did pay this guy the new contract. He is clearly a Pro Bowl player, but he's never going to be Nick Chubb. He's never going to be.
He's a lower tier, and you might disagree with this. He's a lower tier Alvin Kamara. Like, I think he'll always need that other back. He'll always need that other back to kind of supplement him.
And I would agree with that. He once again, we know he's battled injuries his whole career, and this is for the first time he's actually stayed fully healthy for a full season and been able to play. And even then, over that full season, he wasn't like wildly productive. I don't think he didn't have a 1,600 yard season. I want to say he had 12 or 13. So it's he had his moments, but it wasn't just an explosive season for him. That being said, looking at different destinations, you're right. It is a witch hunt right now, I think, on running backs, and they're looking at, okay, if you're not great, or if we feel like we can be productive without you, we're going to move on. So obviously they moved off of Dalvin Cook. But the destinations that I looked at, one on everybody's list is Miami. It's the one that makes the most sense, I think. You would go to a system where you're one of three or four different backs, so you're not going to have a lot of tread on your tire. They're going to find ways to put you in the best position to succeed. And you're looking at two guys who you could probably, if you handle your business, steal carries from. And I want to say Jeff Wilson Jr. and
I think they still got Mostert too.
Raheem Mostert, yeah. Obviously two guys that came from San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have the opportunity. You at least know that you're more talented than those guys. And you can go there and get more carries. But it would be, I think Miami, obviously he's a Florida guy, by the way. Dalvin Cook is a guy who grew up in Florida. You would be closer to home, closer to your family. You go to a warm weather state, so that can only help you stay a little bit healthier. You don't have to worry about playing in cold, rigid Minnesota, especially when it comes to wintertime. And I just think the scheme would be it would be a really good fit for him. So Miami is one. Two, I would say Denver. I think Denver.
I think I heard that earlier.
Denver would be a very good fit because one, obviously you're going to be a perfect complement to Javonte Williams in his powerful running style.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what Sean Payton loves to do with running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think that you would see him highlight that ability in Dalvin Cook even more. And you would see him use him in similar ways that he used Alvin Kamara. I don't know if he's the route runner that Alvin Kamara is, but I think that you would see him move him around that system. And then obviously you go and you get to play with hopefully a much improved Russell Wilson.
Right.
Three, and I got interested with this one, and I don't think that they have anything to lose. You can go to Buffalo and play with your little brother.
That's actually one of the teams that I have, though. Actually, that's one of the teams that I have, Buffalo.
Yeah, and it's because when you look at them, I mean, granted, they picked up Damian Williams, who we like. I know me and you talked about Damian Williams, very hard-nosed back, more of a power runner. But you could go there and be the final piece to that three-back system. And I mean, hate to say it, possibly still carries and be the lead back. Buffalo doesn't have a runner right now that you can really hang your hat on and say like, yo, this, you're like, we got to worry about this one.
I think he probably gets. I'll say 60. He'll get 60 to 65% of the carries, and then he'd probably be their third. He'd probably be their third down back. Considering that he's pretty adequate catching out of the backfield, and I think that's a really good. I think that's a really dangerous fit when you can add him there. And then obviously, I love the Dalton Kincaid pick in the draft at tight end. They still got Diggs and the other wide receivers leaving my head right now. But
you talking about Gabriel Davis?
Gabriel Davis, yeah. So I mean,
Davis.
They got some guys there.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I look at those three teams. You go to not only would you fit perfectly in that running back rotation, there's a role for you, but you're going to three teams that could be competitive this year. So those were the destinations I saw.
So I definitely had Denver. I mean, not Denver, Buffalo. Definitely had Buffalo on my list. I was listening to some guys earlier, and Denver's been thrown out there. Obviously, Miami's been thrown out there. I'm gonna throw a dark horse out there, and maybe it's because I'm a homer. You can stay right there in division and come to the Bears. Come to my Bears. I would love that. And then we still got Khalil Herbert, who is kind of a big bruising, tough yardage back. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of, to me, Khalil Herbert is exactly like David Montgomery. That's why they made Montgomery, expendable, because he's exactly like David Montgomery. But he can come there, be another weapon for Justin Fields. He probably get the bulk of the carries. He probably get, once again, 55, 60% of the carries. And then he'd be our third down back. We can find, interesting, unique ways to get him the ball out of the backfield. I mean, I would love for my Bears to go ahead and get him. And we still have the most cap room in the NBA. I mean, in the NFL. We still have the most cap space in the NFL. So, I mean, even if we slightly overpaid for him, I'd be okay with that, because I think he can really help this team, help this offense, help that locker room. Obviously you mentioned Buffalo. And then I think like you said, Miami, going in that system, and obviously they got speed all over the place, and I think that will really kind of open some lanes up for them or whatnot. So yeah, those are my three though. My Bears number one, kind of as a dark horse, and then obviously Buffalo playing with his brother and the fit there, and then Miami. But I don't know. I haven't heard the Bears mentioned or anything, but I would love for him to come to the Bears. And I obviously I've been a probably a bigger fan than him than you are.
Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, he's
obvious reasons.
His obviously he's had his injury issues, but I mean, once again, if he comes to the Bears, Khalil Herbert's there that can really take some of those carries and some of that weight off of him. We get him, 12 to 15 touches a game, get him out in space, because he's really good. He still showed even last year that he's really good operating in space. And yeah, man, I think I would love for the Bears to pick him up. But I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I've heard, obviously I've heard Miami, I've heard Denver, I've heard Buffalo. It was one more destination that I heard that kind of blew my mind. Oh, San Francisco. Like, I heard some people even talking about San Francisco, and I was just like,
I mean, he would be I would be interested to pair him with Christian McCaffrey. And I tell you,
they both have their injury issues. So
yeah, and Christian McCaffrey, it's funny, I mentioned them on the Sports Exclusive podcast. Them two specifically are having injury issues, although they're really talented players. But I mean, that would be sexy. I would actually enjoy that. I would enjoy watching that, seeing them two to kind of play off of each other. And I mean, man, that would be a very, very dangerous combo. So actually, I never heard San Francisco, but if that is able to come into fruition, then that makes a dangerous team even more dangerous. I've heard Dallas, which I mean, I wouldn't fight it, because you're not going to give 20 carries to Tony Pollard. So I mean, that's a
But
very
if
big
he
possibility.
comes to Dallas, and if he was to come to Dallas, Tony Pollard would still be, one on the depth chart.
I think it would be more of a 1A, 1B type of situation because I mean, once again, you're not going to give Tony Pollard, he's not going to take 20, 25 carries. That's just not who he is.
Mm-hmm.
You could share them, you can split carries a lot more. And then now you're running a more Mike McCarthy-esque West Coast type offense, and he just doesn't run guys a lot. So he likes throwing in, he likes throwing them. Even remember that Super Bowl run, they had about 4 or 5 different running backs. He likes throwing in 10 carries here from this back, then 5 or 6 carries from this back, Sometimes, once again, sometimes he uses all the running backs on the depth chart. So it would be, I think it would be a seamless fit. I would say it can almost have a similar impact of what we just talked about in San Francisco, where you would come in and you would have 2 really good running backs or 2 explosive running backs play off of each other and be able to keep each other healthy, because not one is not going to take on too much volume or take on too much of the heavy load. So, I mean, theoretically it could work. I just don't know how it would work contract wise, because they have to pay so many upcoming young elite players. But I mean, if they were able to work it out, they just get, I want to say Dallas is top 3, top 5 in cap space now after June. So very possible.
Quietly,
you never know. But I would say, just wrapping up, and we're kind of moving off of Dalvin Cook, but wrapping up, we had we mentioned, and this is small news, it's not too much context on this, but we just had we have college football. EA Sports is developing college football 2024, which is pretty much, it's the equivalent, but it's the same as the NCAA football game. We all grew up playing, and we loved. Everybody was on Road to Glory, and everybody created a running back, and I think I created every single position. But the game is coming back.
Everybody was playing with Reggie Bush or his likeness. Okay,
or his likeness.
SC was my squad. Okay. Reggie Bush, what was that like? Well, we're going back like 04, 05 or something.
That was I want to say that was the 06 game. That's the one where he was on the front, where he was like,
yes, boy, Reggie.
Yeah, 05, 06. He was number 5. Then you had number 21 with the dark visor, Lindell White.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a great time to really play, EA Sports football games. But obviously it's coming back. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, the reason why it ended is because of name, image, and likeness. The game not only was accused, but it was proven that they were taking players' likenesses and they weren't clearing it with the proper parties, and they weren't paying these guys. So the players were like, "Yo, yeah." But now I was talking to Swan about this. This was a time where NIL wasn't even really formed in the NCAA. Now it's formed, and it's a thing. These players are getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. So this game is coming out, and these players are like, "Hey, show me the money." And they're like, "If you don't show me the money, now we're looking at the possibility of you're having some of your bigger name players hold out." Because they're not getting their NIL money for EA Sports College Football 2024. So that is looking at what that could be something that possibly happens here in the upcoming season if they don't figure out how they're really gonna pay these players.
And rightfully so. I mean, I'm not sure what EA Sports was thinking, especially with the amount of athletes now in the college sports atmosphere that are making 6 and close to 7 figures now, in
some millions,
different sport, but Angel Reese is making over $1 million.
I think she's making. I think she's making probably closer to 3 million now.
She Bronny's going to be number 1. She's going to be like the second highest paid collegiate athlete.
Yeah.
So these kids are making money,
right?
And I'm not sure what EA was thinking. Thinking they can go out and use these kids' image and likeness and not pay them. after all of this, after they had been doing it previously for so many years, you know,
Well,
I mean, I'm not sure what they were thinking.
Well, here's the thing. This is the way I see it. First of all, they've been developing this for a while. They've been developing this probably for the last 5-6 years, right?
In preparation
NIL,
for bringing the game back.
In preparation for bringing the game back. I think this is something that we're just now seeing kind of come to the surface, but I believe behind the scenes, as they've watched how NIL has grown and become ridiculous. Because if we want to be honest, NIL has really started to make its mark over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. It's been more recent than far. So I think that
but it's still a fairly new thing. I mean, it's only maybe 3-4 years old. Like, it's still a fairly new thing.
Yeah, it's a new thing. So my point is I think that behind the scenes, this is something that they've probably, especially if they've been front and center watching this shit build up like us, they've been like, oh fuck, yeah, this is gonna be a problem down the line. Just letting you guys know. So we're gonna keep developing the game, but just be ready. So I know they've had their legal team ready for this. They probably brainstormed and lost some family time, lost nights of sleep, figuring out, okay, how are we going to truly compensate these players? What deals are we going to make? Just so these players are happy, because we don't want to run into the same situation that we ran into last time. So I think that this is something that they've already knew that was going to be a problem, especially watching the way that NIL has grown over the last 2 seasons.
And then, so let me ask this, and this is just for a little clarification for me. So say if said, okay, we're talking, let's use Caleb Williams for an example, right?
Okay.
Say if Caleb Williams decides that he wants to, boycott this game, and he doesn't agree with them to use him in this, is it kind of similar to like, okay, if he boycotting the game, then they can't necessarily use his likeness in the game? Is it kind of like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but kind of like Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley refuses to allow, any video game to use his likeness, what I'm saying, in the game. His name
as did Michael Jordan for a while.
Yeah, Michael Jordan did for the longest time until probably about 01-ish or so. So would that be like the same? Are we looking at like basically the same thing here with these collegiate athletes?
I think so. But I think for them, the allure of this new college football was that it was supposed to be as close to realistic as possible. So I think that's not something that they don't want to go that route. And especially for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is the face of college football right now.
Yeah.
So I think for them, it's just they have to figure out a way of how can we put a good product out, without overspending or overcompensating these players. And because now you have to build a ranking system with how you're going to compensate these guys. You got to treat Caleb Williams different than you treat, dare I say,
the last
Shedeur
guy on Middle Tennessee State or something.
Middle Tennessee State, yeah. So it becomes a complicated situation, and I've always been a big advocate for these collegiate athletes to really start to get paid, because we've seen the system. I hate to say it like this, but rape them for so long and just take advantage of them and make millions of dollars and just throw these kids off to the side, especially if they get hurt. So I've always been a big advocate for that. But this was one of the challenges that I think that why you had certain people push back against NIL, because they knew when things like this would come into play, that it would make it would make things much more difficult. And as a fan of college football, of NCAA football, it's gonna hurt. It's painful because I'm so split, because I want the players to get compensated. But God damn it, I've been waiting for this game for so long. I'm still playing. I got I went to a thrift store and I bought NCAA 2014 just to kind of just to run. Yeah, I got my old Xbox 360 and I played NCAA 2014 with Denard Robinson on the front, right, which was the last one, and it was great. But just so I can partake in the action, So I just have to kind of let that go and maybe accept that this could possibly be the last one, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
And just a little off topic, but just as an aside for anyone who still believes in that Madden curse, Josh Allen will be gracing the cover of Madden 24 this season.
Well, Patrick Mahomes beat it, so
Yeah, he did. So
he did. He beat it. I think Tom Brady beat it.
yeah,
So I mean, maybe the curse is changed. Look, maybe for Josh Allen, it'll have an adverse effect because remember he led the league in total turnovers this year. Maybe it makes him play like the best quarterback in the world.
we shall see.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, man, that's pretty much it. I think pretty pretty exciting, straight to the point episode. We got to talk some NBA finals. Got to talk about, players on both sides of the house, NFL and NBA,
Mm-hmm.
Dalvin Cook and Chris Paul on the move, right? We don't know where they're going to go. And then obviously we just discussed this whole NIL conundrum with EA Sports College Football 2024. You got anything else?
No, man. Obviously, you know what I'm saying, like and subscribe to us on YouTube, Rooted in Sports. Follow us on Instagram at Rooted in Sports. My boy Kenny, obviously follow the podcast, the Sports Exclusive Podcast. Obviously, give that a follow. I think you hit him with the retro episode yesterday, right?
I hit him with a retro
with the
episode
throwback yesterday.
The throwback, 2021 lacrosse. I had a lacrosse interview with my boy Coach James, and it was just really good. I was rewatching. I said, man, this was a really, really good episode. And I was at the bare beginning of my sports podcasting career. So it's been fun. It was fun to watch.
So guys, definitely go check that out. Like and subscribe to that on YouTube. Once again, that's the Sports Exclusive Podcast. You can give each of us a follow individually on Instagram. My Instagram handle is iswan_0623. And then you got Tiberius, the same way you see it spelled across the bottom of the screen here. Tiberius 519. Like I said, obviously follow the Rooted in Sports Instagram page. Rooted in Sports community this Saturday, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And yeah, that's about it. I think we covered everything, man.
Yeah, we covered everything. Like I said, it's basketball. We'll see where we're at next Thursday. We'll see what the finals are looking like. But right now it's just a transitional period in sports. So we're gonna definitely do our best to just continue to keep the sports the sports information coming. And then like I said on a prior episode, we'll do some polls and we'll ask you guys some of the things that you guys want to hear, some questions you guys have for us, or some things you want us to, some topics you want us to hit on. So a lot of stuff coming up.
That'll be dope, man. We can get into some lists and stuff and who greatest or best this, that, because those are always fun. Always highly debatable topics. So
always fun.
So yeah, man. But
yeah,
man. Once again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate everybody that will tune in. And much love. God bless. And we will see you guys same time next week.
Peace.
Peace out.